And we are live back at Jazz TV Weekly, episode 201. A very good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jazz from Jazz Real Estate EV Group in Point Cook. We welcome you back at Jazz TV Weekly. I apologize, Nick is not here with us today. I'll be doing the Jazz TV Weekly by myself this time. So let's jump straight into it. Let's start with the auction clearance rate. Today we'll be talking about auction clearance rate. We're talking about what happened in the last 2 months in Point Cook, what happened in the last 1 week in Point Cook, and what are the prices doing. Auction clearance and how does auction clearance and the campaigns work. And we'll talk a little bit about one of our auctions that we had recently. Was a tremendous outcome in the current market. So let's jump straight into it. Auction clearance rate has been 62%, which was approximately 69% this time last week, and also 80% last year at the same time. What we have seen is absorption rate has reduced, and obviously it'll take some time. And if I go back to the trends and if I see, which I'll be discussing in details, it takes some time for the sellers and the vendors and the buyers to sort of understand and find a sweet spot in the market to make a decision, either selling or buying, for an example. However, there's influx of buyers still in the market. We're still seeing the market receiving a lot of interest and a lot of buyer inquiries in Point Cook and even Tarneit and Truganina. Now, let's jump back onto this topic later. Coming back to what happened in Point Cook, we had approximately 7 or 8 auctions scheduled in Point Cook, and out of these auctions, approximately 4 sold, and some of them got passed in, and obviously post-auction process takes care of itself. If the agent is skilled enough to negotiate post-auction, there will be a sale very likely to happen. Some of the stats, let's talk about last week's stats for Point Cook. There was about 9 sales we've seen, and last month Point Cook saw about 58, and in May there was about 100 sales in the market. So there's definitely a bit of a change there, and which could potentially be a lot more lesser in the next couple of months, depending on how the sellers position their properties and position their prices. So it's critical that you get an agent in to have a new assessment done. If you had an appraisal done, or if you had an assessment done in the last 1 month to about 3 months or even 6 months, you should get a new price check done, because that is critical. Prices have slightly changed. Now, some properties are still getting good outcomes and good interest. Number of different factors have never changed: presentation, positioning, pricing, and how you market the property. And obviously at the end, how the agent negotiates. The negotiation skills is certainly one thing which will be critical this time, where a good negotiator and a good operator would actually stand out versus a normal real estate agent who's just gone onto the market and started selling in the last 3 to 6 months. So there's definitely a bit of a change there in the marketplace, guys. Coming back to the stats for auction clearance, and also talking about 34 McWilliams Crescent. 34 McWilliams Crescent, sold story. Karen and Richard, beautiful owners of this beautiful home, were living there for about 5 years. I met them 5 years ago, but they just moved in, and that was evident, obviously, with their video testimonial after the auction. I'll put in a link for that as well in the comments, or perhaps in the bio if you're watching it on Instagram. Now, Karen and Richard decided to sell the home and move to Warren Ponds in Geelong. It was more of a change in their circumstances and their life. They wanted to move on with the next chapter of their life, so we jumped on and looked after the sale process for them. The campaign was a private sale to start with, which was a great move to assess and check the level of interest and competition into the market and to their property itself. So we had a fair bit of interest come in, and a lot of groups that have come through to the open home as well. Now, given the fact that that property was getting a lot of feedback, we were getting feedback where some buyers were positioning themselves at a lesser price, and some buyers were at that level where they wanted to sell. So we thought it's much safer now to take it to auction. So the property went to an auction campaign. We ran about 3.5 weeks campaign after running a 2.5 weeks private sale campaign. So it was quite critical to understand the level of interest prior, rather than jumping into the auction campaign. Like we've noticed in the last few weeks, some of the properties in Point Cook have passed in because you don't really know where the property would sit at in terms of the price, or perhaps if the interest level will be there. So it's not about getting the property passed in. Property would still sell if it passes in, but it's just that if you are doing an exercise, do it properly and you make sure that your property gets the best outcome, because there is an opportunity, if you follow the right process, to achieve an extra 5 or 10% at auction, for an example. So this is exactly what we did. We did have to sort of shift a little bit from the price point, but it actually got us where we wanted. So initially the property was priced between 750, roughly around 750 to 800 mark on a private sale campaign. Went on the market on a private sale from private sale to auction. We went to 720 to 790, and that actually saw influx of buyers come through. Another strategy right at the end was displaying the reserve price. Now, us and the vendors, we had meetings face to face throughout the campaign. Last meeting we had a discussion around, let's put up the reserve price on the internet. So we did that strategy there, which was done in 2018's market when Royal Commission was quite active. There was a strategy that we used in the past as well. There's multiple other strategies that can be used in a market which is changing. For example, change could be good and bad, could be ideal, could be not so ideal, depending on which side of the journey you are at. And we went for a reserve price disclosure auction campaign for the last week. That got us approximately 7 to 8 more parties interested in the property. And we had roughly around 40 to 45 groups at the auction. The auction started at 680, went to about 788, which was roughly about 58,000 above the vendor's reserve price. So that was a great outcome there. Vendors are now happy and they're moving on to the next journey of their life. Now, a little bit more, as I said, due to the time restriction, we'll talk quickly about auction processes. Guys, when you take any property to auction, it's a good insight and good intel if you decide to go on auction. Always understand the market. Always understand roughly what price point your property would realistically sell for, and price it correctly. If in an auction campaign your property is not priced correctly, then chances are that your home would not get a lot of interest. And if you don't get much interest, then you will still sell. As I always say, your property would still sell. The big question is, would you get more if you're exhausting a method which has proven itself to get more for the vendors? You must price your property correctly at the auction campaign, and obviously in a private sale as well. You can still create multiple level of competition and buyers and offers even on a private sale, and try to push the price up as well if that's what you're trying to aim. And for buyers as well, it actually gives clarity. If it's an auction campaign, they can see how many bidders are there, what's the market prepared to pay. But again, at the same time, it does psychologically affect the buyers. Me being a buyer, having attended auctions to purchase myself, I am your first-hand example that it does affect you psychologically. It makes buyers think a lot of times to ensure that they are not pricing them out of the market. They always have 3 or 4 different prices in their mind. If a buyer is genuinely interested in the property, that you have a good opportunity on the day to actually get a really good outcome from the sale process, and the sale proceeds can be a lot more higher than what you expect. Now, I see a lot of times the properties that get passed in, especially in the changing market, one of the reasons is the pricing. Some vendors are still thinking the property is worth what it was 6 months before, for an example. That could be the case, but it depends on how the campaign has been positioned, how the marketing's been done. Also, it also depends on the agents. Are the agents talking to the buyers? Are they jumping on the phone, speaking to buyers, getting more buyers organized? Are they utilizing the database? Are they exhausting the open for inspection callbacks? If 20 buyers have come through to an open home, what is your agent's plan? What are their schedule like? How do they position themselves in doing a buyer callbacks? What sort of information they're extracting from there on? Are they just asking interest, or if the buyers are interested or not, or are they asking some probing questions to understand where the level of interest for that purchaser for that particular property sits at? And also then organizing another private inspection. It's all about face-to-face inspections with the buyers, creating competition, and using strategies which I obviously, being our personal IPs, I'll be more than happy to discuss it in person. There's a lot of different strategies that we utilize in the office, and we pre-plan a lot of the things that we do around the campaign to ensure that we navigate our clients through the process and create competition. Competition is a hype if you just rely on realestate.com and domain to have people come to the open home, and in case if the property gets interest, or there's another way of manufacturing interest. There's different tactics and different skills a good operator and a good or a great real estate agent can actually utilize for you. So there's different ways. More than happy to have that discussion. So hence why, with all due respect, many of our campaigns in a changing market still sell, and they sell for a good price because there's a lot of work that goes into the background, and there's a lot of processes and systems that we interact with and also utilize and exhaust for our vendors. Guys, I can go on for how the auction process works for hours, but again, due to time restrictions, we'll be wrapping this up today. If you have any questions, please let us know. Would love to help and would love to look after your beautiful home. Or if you have any questions in general, please feel free to give us a call. 04354 68689 is my number, and I'd love to help. Thank you so much for watching this video and being there on live today. Thank you so much for your time, and you have a lovely week ahead. Thank you.